In today's review video, we're going to be looking at a period characterized by industrialization, territorial expansion, and shifting diplomatic strategies. Join me as we discuss America becoming an imperial power. Let's get started.
Let's begin with the desire for territorial expansion. One significant acquisition during this period of time was the purchase of Alaska from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million. Initially, this was mocked as Seward's folly, making reference to William H. Seward, but over time, with its abundant natural resources like gold and oil, it proved to be a strategic and economic boon for the United States. Meanwhile, America's expansion into the Pacific saw the annexation of Hawaii in 1898. This move, driven by economic interest in sugarcane and the desire to establish naval bases and refueling stations in the Pacific, eventually led to Hawaii being annexed into the United States as a territory despite pleas from native Hawaiians to please leave us alone. 1898 also marked the Spanish-American War in both the Philippines and in Cuba. In February of 1898, the USS Maine exploded off of Havana Harbor, leading yellow journalists like Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst to point the finger at the Spanish. This, combined with the federal government's desire to get into Cuba and into the Philippines, led the United States to declare war on the Spanish. This was a swift little war, as George Dewey once called it, resulting in Spanish defeat in just 3 months. As a part of the Paris Peace Conference signed in December of that year, the United States acquired the territories of Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Additionally, the Cubans were granted their independence. But the United States included the Platt Amendment, which allowed for American intervention in Cuban affairs if the United States deemed it necessary. Out in the Pacific, the natives in the Philippines were under the assumption that by supporting the United States in their fight against Spanish occupation of the island, this would naturally come with Filipino sovereignty at war's close. However, that's not at all how it plays out. Filipino leader Emilio Aguinaldo, having previously fought alongside American forces against Spanish rule, declared independence. Lasting until 1902, the war was marked by guerrilla tactics, atrocities like reconcentration camps, and the imposition of American rule. Despite Filipino resistance, the conflict resulted in U.S. victory, establishing American control in the Philippines. The war left a legacy of deep-seated nationalism and a complex relationship between the two nations, influencing political dynamics in the Philippines and U.S. foreign policy in the Asia-Pacific region. But America's expansion wasn't just limited to the Western Hemisphere. The United States also entered into agreements with the Samoan Islands in the Pacific, further solidifying its presence in the region. Additionally, the United States pursued a foreign policy initiative known as the Open Door Policy concerning China. This policy, advocated by Secretary of State John Hay in 1899, aimed to ensure equal trading rights for all nations in China, particularly in the wake of the Boxer Rebellion and the dismantling of traditional spheres of influence. The open door policy essentially sought to prevent any one power from monopolizing trade and investment opportunities within China. Simultaneously, the United States engaged in what became known as the Gentleman's Agreement with Japan. This informal agreement, reached in 1907, aimed to address growing tensions over Japanese immigration to the United States. In the agreement, Japan agreed to limit the immigration of its citizens to the United States, while the U.S. promised to respect the rights of Japanese immigrants already residing in the country. This agreement was significant for its attempt to mitigate tensions between the two nations and address domestic concerns regarding immigration while avoiding more formal diplomatic channels. Together, the open door policy and the Gentleman's Agreement exemplified the United States' diplomatic efforts to assert its interests in East Asia while also seeking to maintain stability and open trade relations in the region.
But back at home, there was a serious debate going on about whether or not America should even be involved in this type of imperialistic behavior. This is what we call the debate between imperialists and anti-imperialists.
Proponents of imperialism, such as naval strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan, a prominent naval historian and strategist who argued in his popular book, The Influence of Sea Power Upon History, that control of the seas was essential for a nation's prosperity and security. He emphasized the pivotal role of naval power in achieving global dominance, advocating for the expansion and modernization of navies to secure strategic interests, a doctrine that profoundly influenced naval policies and strategies of major powers, including the United States and Great Britain, for years to come. On the other hand, the Anti-Imperialist League, comprising of prominent figures like Mark Twain and William Jennings Bryan, opposed America's imperialistic ventures, citing concerns about moral integrity, the rights of indigenous peoples, and the dangers of foreign entanglements.
Despite the concerns of the anti-imperialists, America pursued various diplomatic strategies to assert its influence abroad. Theodore Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy emphasized the use of military force to protect American interests. This is exemplified by his intervention in the construction of the Panama Canal and his diplomatic mediation in the Russo-Japanese War. William Howard Taft's dollar diplomacy, on the other hand, aimed to promote economic development and stability through investment and trade. This policy was demonstrated in negotiation of loans to foreign governments, particularly in Latin America, to facilitate infrastructure projects and promote American interests.
However, you also have Woodrow Wilson's moral diplomacy, which advocated for promoting democracy and human rights in international relations. Wilson aimed to align America's foreign policy with its professed values, supporting democratic movements in Latin America and opposing oppressive regimes.
In the years that follow, Woodrow Wilson's foreign policy will be reshaped by U.S. entrance into the Great War, but that's for another video. That's all the time we have for today. If you liked the video, click below. Also subscribe to our channel, and if you know somebody who would benefit from this video, somebody who's getting ready to take their end of the year test, please share this with them so that we can help as many people as we possibly can. We'll see you next time.